We all say in a leader, we want somebody who will be a leader. We want somebody who will make the hard decisions when times are hard. We want somebody who won't look at the polls, but will look at the future and think about what's good for the children. We want somebody who will keep score the way I always keep score. Are people better off when you quit than when you started? Do children have a brighter future? Are things coming together or being torn apart? By those tests, this man has more than earned the chance to finish the job he started 4 years ago. And so here's what I think about this. He has proved he's a true leader because, first, he articulated a vision for the future of Connecticut. And the most important thing about it is it was inclusive. He said, you know, we need to go forward together. We want shared prosperity. And to get it, there has to be shared opportunities and shared responsibilities. He articulated a strategy to fulfill that vision. And he said, look, we have the highest government deficit per capita in the entire country. Our pension systems are in trouble. We're facing massive cuts in education. We're facing the prospect of big layoffs at a time when unemployment is always high. If you think I can fix this without any pain, you need to hire somebody else. If you think there are no difficult decisions to be made, if you think that we don't have to operate according to the rules of arithmetic, you need to go with someone else. By 6,400 votes, the people of Connecticut said, thank you for telling us the truth. Please go do the hard thing. That's what they said. So he raised some more revenues. But he did it from the people who had more money. Not because he wanted to punish success, but he did it for the same reason the famous Willie Sutton robbed banks, because that's where the money was. Middle-class people's incomes were lower then than they were the day I left office after adjusting for inflation. And where are you? You're out of debt. You've got a surplus in a rainy day fund. Your pension systems are in good shape. Nobody had to be laid off. Education funding increased by $200 million when state after state after state decided to cut it. He had a strategy to support the vision. You became the first state in the country to raise the minimum wage to $10.10. It's a good, let me tell you something. It's parenthetic. I raised the minimum wage as governor. I raised it as president. I tried to raise it twice as president, but the Republicans didn't agree with me. They always say the sky is going to fall. You could have a minimum wage that was too high. If you raised it to $20 tomorrow, a lot of small businesses would be in trouble. But if you are prudent and you try to keep up with the cost of living and you think about the lives of working people operating on or near the minimum wage, think about it. It always helps the economy. Why? Because people at the bottom who are working hard to raise their children in dignity and have to struggle to pay their bills every month will spend every penny of it, put it into the economy where it circulates and creates more jobs. It has never failed to help the economy. Now, you adopted a paid sick leave law. There's only 3 or 4 states in the country that have done that. Oh, they always say this will hurt the economy. Of all the wealthy countries on earth, we are the only one that had no paid leave as a national policy. And plenty of them are doing quite well, thank you very much, with booming economies, partly because they take care of the people who do the work. And finally, he and the person who's about to be the leader of the Senate finally succeeded in having a state earned income tax credit. So let's not forget that. He did cut taxes for some people. Working people on limited incomes who were trying to raise their kids got a tax cut to help them raise their children. They also spent all that money, and it helped grow this economy. You had a small business economic strategy for the very first time. The man had a strategy, and he implemented it, and it worked. Now, the second test, the third. So he had a vision, and he had a strategy to implement it. The third thing is he dealt with the incoming fire. It's another way you measure leaders. Incoming fire were natural disasters and your horrible human disaster. He set up funds to try to take care of the people in the aftermath. He managed the reconstruction project on the natural disasters. Nobody questions that he did a good job. But if he'd done a bad job, everyone would know it. And finally, he's got an agenda for the future. And let me just say something that's really close to my heart and Hillary's heart. This idea of having universal pre-K is a big deal. Why? Why? There is a word gap for children in their early years who come from educated and non-educated homes of 3 million words. The neural networks, the architecture of the brain, is structured largely by the time you're 3 or 4 years old. Having universal pre-K can create an inclusive future where we have shared opportunities, and it'll make us all better off because they're all our children. Now, and I got to say one thing about this gun issue. You know, I was the last president to actually have some success in passing. We passed the Brady bill, and we passed the assault weapons ban, and we limited ammunition clips. And the blood was on the floor. And I remember when I went to New Hampshire to run for re-election, I was thinking about it because I'm going up there today. They beat the congressman from there because he voted for this. And I told all those hunters, I started off with a rally before deer hunters. My young staff thought I had lost my mind. I said, look, you beat your congressman up here because he voted for this. I said, now, if you missed an hour, even an hour in the deer woods because of what I did, I want you to vote against me too. But if you didn't, if you can still hunt, sports, shoot, and protect your family, they didn't tell you the truth about this, and you need to get even. I'm going to tell you the same thing. This is crazy. You've got to have universal background checks. You've got to. I was telling my staff coming in here today, I got a friend in the mountains of North Arkansas, which is about as gun crazy as you can get. I mean, in terms of, it's great, and he has a friend who's a gun collector, has 100 guns. And the gun collector said, anybody who would sell a gun to someone else at a gun store, over the internet, out of the back of a pickup at a gun show without a background check ought to be ashamed of themselves. If you can't pass one, you got no business owning a gun. And so so what's a leader? A leader has a vision, a leader has a strategy, a leader executes a strategy, a leader responds to the incoming fire, the things you didn't talk about in the campaign because God knows you couldn't foresee them happening, and then has an agenda for the future. Now, what is the alternative? His opponent says, oh, we just got to cut more taxes. Well, what are you going to cut when you cut the taxes? Oh, I'll worry about that later. We're going to pretend, look, I've been listening to this for over 30 years now. They talk tough, but they govern soft. They tell voters, you can eat all the candy you want and you will never have to go to the dentist. The consequences are not good. The consequences for Connecticut of what Dan and Nancy have done have been very good. And I also want to say something else. They've practiced good governance. They did this health care thing right. They got the rollout right. You went from 7.9% to 4% uninsured. Hundreds of thousands of your fellow citizens have health insurance for the first time. It's going to improve the quality of health care, improve the stability of families, improve the productivity of employees, and lower the rate of increase in health care costs. In my native state, Arkansas, where I grew up, my governor put this Medicaid expansion thing in a state with a majority Republican legislature, and all the crowd was screaming at them how they betrayed them and everything. You know what the inflation rate in health care costs is this year? And we cut the uninsured rate almost in half, -2%. Why? Because, and I'm just telling you, so Dan Malloy and Nancy Wyman, with the help of a lot of other people, articulated a vision, had a strategy, governed well, responded to the incoming fire, and have an agenda for the future. Their opponent basically says they made too many hard decisions, too many people said, ouch, vote for me, I'll make it easy on you. I'm just going to cut everybody's taxes, and oh, by the way, I'll tell you later what we're going to cut. What, are you going to cut education? No. What are you going to do? Well, And we're still vulnerable to it. Why? Because people are still hurting, because their incomes are still pressed, because we still haven't had broad-based growth in the country as a whole, and that affects Connecticut. But I'm telling you, this guy learned to be tough because of the obstacles he had to overcome as a child, as a young adult, as a mayor. And he knew you'd never get anywhere in life if you lived in denial. When my daughter was in high school, all these kids had a saying that denial was not just a river in Egypt. It is a lousy strategy for life, for child rearing, and for political leadership. You have the opposite in Dan Malloy. You have a guy who said, look at what you've got in Connecticut. This is a state with staggering resources. You've got a lot of diversity, people from all over the world, great educational institutions, wonderful performance, K through 12, great higher education institutions. The other thing he did that I really like is to elevate technical education again. We have got to abolish the distinction between academic and technical education. And, you know, you got these. So are you going to give them to somebody who never would have made the decisions that got you where you are today for the last 4 years? Where would you be if those 6,400 votes hadn't been here 4 years ago? Would you be out of debt? No. Would you have a rainy day fund? No. Would your pension funds be secure and stable without having to have mass layoffs? No. Would you have put all that money into education? No. Would you have the first small business development initiative you ever had? No. Would you have passed the gun safety legislation? Absolutely no, right? No, 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 no. Now, your job is to go out there and talk to people who aren't in this room, who understand why they should support the governor, the lieutenant governor, and other candidates, and why they got to vote. We have no one to blame but ourselves if they don't win, because you will never have a candidate with a stronger record of substantive achievement. So if we don't make it, it's because we didn't show up and we said, oh, thank you very much. Now I think I'll let this other guy come in and skate and maybe have some of the credit for things he was against. You've got to decide. You do. He's going to do everything he can. She's going to do everything she can. Their campaigns will do everything they can. but the lives of the children and the future of this state will be shaped dramatically by this election. And in some ways, this election is even more important than the last one. Because here you've got a guy who told you what he was going to do, went out and did it, gave you great results, handled unforeseen challenges, has an agenda for the future, and you say, thank you very much, but I think I'll go to the movies on Election Day. You can't let it happen. This state is too important to America. It plays above its weight in so many ways. You have shown us that these things can be done. Now you have to ratify what has been done and open the path for what can be done by re-electing your governor and your lieutenant governor. Thank you, and God bless you.